Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say how grateful I am to the people of Cork South West and what an honour it is to represent them here. Brexit-related uncertainty might be front of mind since the European Council meeting, but it's fair to say that a reduction in cap payments has been on the card since the Commission put forward its original budget proposal in May 2018. At the very heart of this new arrangement discussed in February is the Irish Protocol, which appears to guarantee unfettered trade north to south and vice versa on the island of Ireland. Of course, the question is, will this measure stay in place regardless of whatever future trade arrangements are agreed between the UK and the EU? From an agricultural perspective, this means looking at issues that could deharmonise agri-trade arrangements on this island. And the most obvious one that springs to mind is a distortion in support measures between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Given the dependence of Irish farm incomes on cap payments, there is an inevitably concern over what future negotiations could mean for cap payments to Irish farmers, and any disparity and unfair advantage arising on the island. We know that in recent weeks the Westminster Government committed to retaining its farm funding at 2019 levels for the next 5 years. This of course includes Northern Ireland, where the new Minister for Agriculture has already confirmed the farm support budget for 2020. In the south, within this largely unchanged total, the Commission proposed to shift spending priorities away from the two big ticket items, cohesion and agriculture spending, towards other priorities. With respect to CAP, it proposed a reduction of 15% in constant 2018 prices. This was skewed in favour of a small cut to Pillar 1 spending of 11% and a much larger cut in Pillar 2 spending of 27%. In real terms, average direct payments would fall by 10 to 11%, with a greater cut of 25% in rural development spending. The cuts are less significant in nominal terms. Farmers would see an average of a 3% cut to the nominal amount of their direct payments, while nominal spending on rural development would be cut by 12%. There has never been any attempt or commitment to inflation-proof these payments. From this perspective, a 3 to 4% cut in nominal direct payment may sound small, but it will have a big impact on smaller family farms, already struggling to make ends meet. Although in itself won't be a decisive factor in the future of farming, what will be a decisive factor in the future of farming is the climate and biodiversity crisis. I'm honoured to be agriculture spokesperson for the Social Democrats. I was advised not to touch this brief with a barge pole by family and friends because it's seen as a lose-lose role. To date, all we see and hear is farmers pitted against environmentalists. The conclusion is you're always going to offend someone. But as a West Cork farmer, I believe changing the narrative is an important place to start. That we have to be able to have a productive conversation, no matter how controversial or emotive the issue can be. And I think it's fair to say that CAP, and more specifically CAP reform, can be an emotive topic. There's a good reason for that, because as payment systems go, CAP often raises more issues than it solves. There are many among us in the farming community who don't believe it's fair that a small number of farms are able to take the lion's share of payments when we have smaller family farmers at factory gates length and breadth of the country because they can't get a fair price for their hard work. And more farmers are still left wondering why we're now being blamed for the climate change crisis, for practices that we were actively encouraged and financially incentivised to engage in. Yes, the climate and biodiversity crises are real, but it's not outlandish to suggest that both of these things have ironically been taxpayer funded through CAP. This is not a personal failure of farmers, it's a systematic failure, it's a policy. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, a department official came out to my farm and docked me €800 off my area aid payment because I had bushes encroaching on fields. So in other words, I was financially incentivised to damage the biodiversity on my own farm. I'm a farmer, but I'm also a scientist, and I believe it's time to change the way we talk about farming in this country. Instead of viewing farmers as the problem, we need to start realising that they are the solution, and I include farmers themselves in that, because we have to change. This is what succession planning looks like in 2020. It's what succession planning looks like in the face of our climate and biodiversity crisis, because if we want the next generation to stay on the land, we have to give them a reason to stay. We have to allow them to make a reasonable, fair living for what we'd all agree is extremely hard work. What if we paid our farmers to take care of the landscapes the future of the industry depends on, instead of incentivising them to industrialise it? What if we paid and supported them in moving away from practices we now know are destructive, and helped them open up new opportunities that will come with the changes we need to make? I'd rather see CAP reform that supported farmers and protects the sector in a sustainable way, not a system that forces us into intensified production and depends on overconsumption to survive, and sits back while farmers take the blame for the inevitable results we're now facing. As smaller farmers have seen all too clearly over the past 12 months, they're likely to be swallowed up by that system. Yet all we ever seem to hear from the Department of Agriculture is defence of the sector's growth targets. They quote old data that tells us we do things in some kind of magic formula in Ireland that means it's all right for us to release greenhouse gas emissions because if we don't, another country will. There's no sustainability in that. More recent data from the UN tells us that we release more carbon per euro of food produced than any other country in Europe. There's no sustainability in that. We say things like we need to feed the millions around the world, but we're already a net calorie importer. We decry the burning of the Amazon to clear land for cattle, and then we import feed from there, grown on that cleared land for our own cattle. There's no sustainability in that. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization have warned that the world depends on topsoil to grow 95% of its food, but that's rapidly disappearing under the strain of intensive production. If we continue to degrade our topsoil at the rate we are now, we could run out within 60 years. Imagine 60 harvests of food left. There's no sustainability in that. Our sector is vulnerable, yes. We all know about the small number of very wealthy businesses, but for the overwhelming majority of us, farming is not a lucrative business. But it plays an extremely valuable role in our rural towns and communities, and CAP plays an extremely valuable role in sustaining those family farms and food producers. A representative from a farming organisation told me earlier this week that talk of sustainability in Irish farming was airy-fairy. I can't agree. Sustainability is making sure there's something to farm tomorrow. Sustainability is making sure your kids will also be able to earn a living on the land. Sustainability is producing an exceptional, high-quality product that people pay for and value precisely because it's the product of a truly sustainable system. It's time to view CAP reform through this lens and support farmers through the changes we need to make. Thank you.
Very much, Deputy.